Is it possible that the best marriage has to offer can grow rather than fade after you say, I do? Lisa Jacobson is our guest, and she says the answer is yes. She's been married more than 25 years, so we're going to find out her secret. Welcome to Grounded, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to ask you to be our second good news correspondent for this episode. What's the best you can tell us about Christian marriage today? Is there good news about Christian marriages today?
There is. I know that marriage is hard. I know that the times we're living in are really challenging, but I truly believe and experience a loving, joyful marriage, even through the hard things. And I know lots of people who are also experiencing that.
Yep, I agree. We were praying before this episode, as we always do, and reflecting on the fact that Satan guns for Christian marriages because they can be such a light in the world, but there are Christian marriages thriving. I mostly want you to talk, but I want to tell a little story to set up this next question. My husband's name is Jason. We were engaged, so I was I don't know, 19, he was 23, somewhere in that window. And we were sitting at a Pizza Hut with all these Christian married couples. And they were all talking about how hard marriage is and what a challenge it is and what a struggle it is. And I have a flair for the dramatic. I got up and walked out because it seems like Christians are the ones that talk about hard marriage the most. Why is that our narrative, you think, as Christian couples? Why do we talk about how hard it is so often?
Well, I think that for one, I think we think it's going to be easy. I think we think, okay, assumingly, we're both Christians, and this should be the easy part. And all the hard part is out there, maybe parenting or in the church or in our community, when actually marriage does require, I hate to say it, but constant investment, but it can be a good investment too. And I think that's the part so we neglect those things that we would know to do. Let's just say parenting. Like we know with our kids, we need to spend time with them, that we need to touch them gently, we need to hug them, we need to talk with them, we need to listen. Like we know those things and we try to do those things. But with our marriage, it often ends up being kind of the last thing that we pour into.
It's true. You and Felicia Masonheimer, by the way, Felicia is coming on Grounded in March. You wrote a book called The Flirtation Experiment, which I think that title might have just made some of our Christian friends watching blush. And so I want to keep that going. Let's just deepen the red in their cheeks because the description of that book says the flirtation experiment includes the frisky side of marriage. But more than just a good romp, by degrees, each chapter takes you to a deeper place, covering themes every beautiful marriage has in common: covenant, healing, and hope. So help us take that leap from being open to maybe flirting with our husband to some of those really deep things that all marriages wrestle with. Is that putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound? How does it help?
It can help because more than just like that kind of flirting you might have done in high school, it's not just giggling, although there can be some giggling, but it's that communicating, I think you're special, I'm attracted to you, I see things in you that nobody else in this room can see. And it's a very powerful way of communicating. So when Felicia called me and she said, hey, I've been doing this flirtation experiment, and she has set out 30 flirtations that she was going to secretly do with her husband, Josh, and they've been married about 7 years at the time. And she said, the results have been amazing. We're just closer. We're working through things better and we're enjoying each other more. And I just started laughing. I said, oh, yeah, totally. It's like my secret sauce to where we've been married 30 years now. And if someone did ask if there was a secret, I would almost say that would be it. That willingness to be not just light and silly, but really touching, looking into your eyes, being kind, like all of those things are communicate really powerfully. So when you are working through the hard things, there's this wonderful grounding that you have to work together.
That's so good. I want to love my husband well. Jason and I have been married 21 years. He's my very best friend. But I'm going to say something that shouldn't be countercultural, but in this day and age it is. Men and women are different. You could probably fit what I understand about men in a thimble, even after all these years. So help us. What's flirting to me is flowers. It's doing the dishes. It's telling me I'm beautiful. Those things don't seem to translate for him. So how do we flirt with our men in ways that are meaningful to him?
Well, I think that's part of the fun too, is trying to figure out what he enjoys, what not just turns him on, that is a part of it, but really what speaks to his heart, speaks to his masculinity. And I think about, just for example, so when I was younger and I had all my kids at home, I have 8 children, and my husband was home late for work, and so I was cooking dinner, and he came in, and I was just frustrated, annoyed with him because it was late and I was tired and all the things that you think about. And he came up behind me and he kind of slipped his arms around my waist, and which is his way of saying sorry, I'm late, right? But and I just like shrugged him off because I'm just like, nah, I'm not going to give you anything now. And while I was sauteing the onions, I just had this thought of like, what did I just do? Like, all my younger years, this is exactly what I wanted, a big, strong, handsome man to put his arms around my waist. And here I am telling him to get away, basically. And I thought, what if I did it differently? And I just turned the stove off and I flipped around and I just like wrapped my arms around his neck and I kind of leaned into him big time. And it caught him off guard for a second, but then, got a little heated. And my kids are all just looking at us going, what's up with mom and dad?
Some eyes were rolling, I'm going to predict.
But it was so powerful, and it just set the tone for the rest of the evening. And I'm not saying that, that it solves everything. I never want to communicate that. It's not what I'm saying, but I am saying, like, say later in the evening, we did have some hard things to talk about, maybe some financial decisions or work struggles or a problem with a child. But we had this moment of remembering that, hey, we love each other. We're attracted to one another and we're working together. Like it lays this, that's what it is, like lays this secret sauce down, like I say, just that you can work through those things better. So you're not always just, all right, next thing, what are we going to work on through? What do we need to do next? Because you get so you're just co-parenting and cohabitating, when really God does want for us. He wants joy. He wants a little fire. He wants those special things for you.
In case you missed it, Lisa said they are the parents of 8 children and still find time to flirt. I've had a similar experience here recently because of what Jason said to my friends about me always being busy. And I'm a woman in constant motion. When I hear him come in, I stop what I'm doing, which takes a little bit of overriding of my brain for me. Like, Aaron, stop sauteing the onions or doing whatever you're doing, and turn and go towards him. My children have started following. My husband works from home, so we don't have that big "Daddy's home" moment, but we've started creating it, and it makes a big difference. It's emotional banking is what you're talking about. It's about talking about making deposits in each other's heart so that when there are withdrawals, and there will be withdrawals, that there's some buffer. So you say that the Bible invites women to be proactive in our marriages, and I'm not sure that's the message we hear very often. In fact, I think we might assume it's the opposite, and that we need to let him initiate everything. So take us to some principles in God's word that would encourage women to love their man in this kind of way.
Yeah, I think there is this sense of, well, because he's to be our spiritual leader, because he's supposed to be leading our home, that means he has to do everything. And I don't know about you, but I could sit around for a long time before anything happens, just because he's got a lot going on. Not because he doesn't love me, it's not because he doesn't care, but he just can't do everything. And so when I started initiating things like, hey, I found a babysitter for Friday night, and there's this new Thai place, and I thought we could go. He was thrilled. Like I'm so glad we're doing this. And it actually took some of it off his shoulders of feeling like I have to be Mr. Wonderful everywhere I turn. And that I know what it is I want. I'm not going to make him guess that I'm really thinking about the new Thai restaurant, and I expect you to figure that out, because that's not how his brain is wired, but he's happy to come along. And I have to tell him, you still get full points for coming along and having a good attitude.
Yeah. I think that's so common. We want our husbands to read our minds, which they cannot do. And when they don't, they have failed some test that they didn't even know that they were taking. Jason and I had a similar conversation the other day. I think we hear those verses about like better to live on the corner of your roof than with a nagging wife. And there was something I'd asked him about a couple times and he didn't execute. And I said, I don't like having to ask you about it. He said, I need you. I need you to be my partner. I have a lot going on. I can't remember it all. It was really liberating for me to go like, okay, it's not nagging. when I ask him to do something more than once if my attitude is right. So I love that. You also wrote a book, 100 Words of Affirmation Your Husband Needs to Hear, which I was just researching on Amazon and put it in my cart. Then you also have 100 Words of Affirmation Your Son Needs to Hear, which we all know I have 4 sons. So I don't think men and women speak the same language. So give us some tools, some words for how to affirm our husbands and our sons, our male coworkers, our dad, our male friends, maybe. What are some ways to affirm the men in our life that speak their language?
Words are so powerful. And a lot of times I even hear women say that they go, oh, well, my husband's not really a words guy. And I'm sure that might be true, but I've not met a man yet that doesn't appreciate being told and hearing that I think you're a great guy, or I see this in you, or I love the way you do this. Thank you for that. And no matter what, it still fills their heart and their mind with I'm not a loser. I am doing something right, because
Yeah.
so many men, I feel like now more than ever, feel like they're just struggling or even failing on so many fronts.
Mm,
And
yeah.
like I'll think about it. Okay, another example I can give on this is as I was working on my words of affirmation, because that's not it's actually not my natural tendency. It's something I've purposed to grow in.
Mm.
So I walked by my husband one day and I said, you are so handsome. And I thought, of course he knows he's handsome. He's super good looking. Like it's obvious. Like, everybody knows that. And he looked at me and said, what did you just say? I said,
Mm.
you're handsome. Duh. Like, he goes, oh, that's funny. I've never felt that. I go, this is okay. This
Mm.
man was right. We're not talking a child.
Yeah.
And then he proceeded to tell me that when he was a kid, he felt like he was so ugly that he went through his family's photo album and he literally tore out the picture of himself in each family photo. So I'm looking at this photo album and you can see his whole family's all lined up. And then there's this ragged edge where he had torn himself
Mm.
out. He thought he was ugly. I had never heard that story. I never would have imagined that. And I thought, oh, like he actually needs to hear that. Not just a light, fluffy thing, but genuinely, I think you're good looking. I like the way you appear. And the words are powerful, and you never know which words are going to really heal a wound or build someone up when they really need to know that.
It's so true. One of the phrases you give us in the book is something like, "I'm so glad I married you." And I
Mhm.
said that to Jason this weekend, and he did the same thing, kind of stopped in his tracks and said, "Thank you for telling me that." We've been married 2 decades. It took half a second, but it spoke to some place of worry or fear in his heart. So we can do it, ladies. I know my grounded audience. I know who's listening. And I know there's someone listening and she's married to a man who is very hard to love. Maybe he's not a follower of Jesus at all. Maybe he's hard-hearted. I mean, there's a spectrum of what that man could be like. Can she make a difference in her own marriage when her husband isn't at all interested in growing or changing?
I think this power of words can be applied everywhere, and I think that I understand the difficult season or challenge you would have. And I think when you go to the Lord and you say, in the morning, just say, Lord, give me one kind thing I can, building up words I can say to my husband today, and look for
Mm.
that one thing. And you really never know how God's going to use that. Because a lot of times, men that are hard or mean or grumpy, it's because they feel terrible about themselves. And and so sometimes those words over time can really can make a difference, or that soft touch. Sometimes even that kind gesture can speak volumes, even louder than than all the lectures or the why aren't you or I wish you were, but just that, hey, I see this in you, and hope that the Lord will take that little spark and build it into a more of a flame.
Yeah, it's having his coffee ready just like he likes it as he heads out the door. It's a note on the bathroom mirror. It can look like a million different things. I remember at one point Jason and I were in a fight and I cried out in prayer to the Lord, I'm in a difficult marriage, even though I'm in a wonderful marriage. And what dropped into my heart by the Holy Spirit is me too. I mean, we are married to Christ. We are his bride, and we challenge him every day and can be stubborn and hard-hearted. And so you can model his responsiveness to us. Okay, ladies, the flirtation experiment begins today, and we want to hear about it as this month progresses. You've got your assignment, reach toward your husband. Lisa, thanks for being with us. What a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
I want to know where people can learn more about you before you hang up. You've written a whole lot of marriage strengthening resources, most of which I bought. So you've got Loving Your Husband Well, which is a devotional. It's on my can't wait to read shelf. I also bought these 100 words of affirmation for your husband and son. And of course, there's a flirtation experiment. Where can ladies find your resources?
Okay, well, you can find me at club31women.com, and I'm also on Instagram, all those usual places. And you can find all of those books on Amazon or CBD, any of those book places. And what I especially love to communicate are those little practical ways that you can apply those big concepts. Because a lot of times I think we know we need to love, we know we need to communicate, we know we need to work through, but you just don't know what it looks like on a Tuesday morning. And so what I enjoy doing is just giving those little things. This is one thing I can do today to communicate my love to my husband, to my children. And so that's what the resources are for.
I love it. You're already strengthening the Davis marriage. There's going to be some flirting going on this February. So thank you so much for
Awesome.
being on Grounded, Lisa.